Okay, we're live. Dennis, for maybe not the forever last time, but for the last time for now, I'll kick it over to you.
First of all, thank you, Matthew, for putting this idea together and doing all the things that you do behind the scenes and on camera as well. So this has been a great experience. The show, and this audience, and the panelists that I work with have sharpened my thinking in ways I didn't expect. I'm genuinely grateful for the conversations, especially the practical ideas, the pushback, and the generosity together. And so here's where I'm at, and this is why I'm stepping down as the host. So what I've come to believe is that this new AI era feels a lot like the beginning of the web to me. And the beginning of the web to me was like the invention of the printing press. It's one of those rare history bending shifts. And I'm in the strange position of getting a chance to participate meaningfully in two events of that level of historical immensity in one lifetime. And I just can't turn that opportunity down. So I'm making a choice. I'm cutting back on a lot of things. I'm going to put my attention to where I think the frontier actually is now. For better or worse, the legal frame is too narrow for what I want to explore next. And many of my AI experiments are already outside law. And so, what that all means for me is that I'm doubling down or maybe tripling down on my work through what I call my personal research institute, the Kennedy Idea Propulsion Laboratory. And my focus will be on the human in the loop part of AI, creativity, system stewardship, verification, accountability, things like that. I really want to see if AI is my new medium, and I actually think it is. So I will keep teaching at University of Michigan Law School, one class. I'll keep doing the Kennedy Mile Report with Tom Mile. We're coming up on our 20th anniversary of that podcast. But I'm also making a lot of cuts, even of things I like to protect that focus. And so I'm stepping back. So Matthew, let me close that little opening that you've generously given me, and I'll close with Sherlock Holmes. He said it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. And what I'm looking forward to do is going out to collect the data.
Well, we look forward to you collecting that data and maybe in a few months coming back as a panelist, Dennis. So thanks again for everything you've done as co-host and lead host of Legal AI Live. So with that, Dennis, should we go around the room quick? We got a big panel today, so maybe everyone keep it short.
Yeah, if everybody will introduce themselves, and I think that usually would make sense. Let me just go by who I see will be that. So let's start with Damien
Hey, Damien Real. I work for Clio. I build things and I talk about stuff we build.
and Greg.
Greg Kochansky, Vice President of Thought Leadership at the American Arbitration Association, where I help run our institute, which is our internal think tank.
And Matthew.
I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, law firm owner, podcast host, legal tech co-founder, and I use a lot of AI and teach AI.
And Anna.
Hi, I'm a professor at the University of Montana Law School.
Nick.
Nick Rishwain. I'm a director at experts.com, director, owner of experts.com, and I am constantly dabbling in legal technology, entrepreneurship, and I've founded a couple of companies.
And George.
George Bellis. I'm a business lawyer, business litigation lawyer located outside of Chicago. I also host a monthly Lunch and Learn with Geo, trying to focus on technology to help lawyers. And I am an avid user of AI in the practice of law.
And Carolyn.
Carolyn Elefant, law firm owner, founder of MyShingle.com, the longest running blog on solo and small firm practice. These days, I am helping lawyers to adopt AI and also making sure that it's done ethically and in a competitive manner.
And Kat, and I encourage you to mention your latest event as part of your introduction.
Oh, sure. Hey, y'all. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Kat Moon. I am a lawyer. I'm a professor of the practice at Vanderbilt Law School. I co-founded and co-direct the Vanderbilt AI Law Lab, VAIL. And I am optimistic and also skeptical about the impact of AI on the practice of law and on the rule of law. So, and yes, actually just saw Carolyn this past weekend. She was at the event in question, the Women in AI Summit. It was our second annual event. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Happy to talk more about it if I get a chance.
Okay. Yeah, I think, Kip, that the idea of keeping those two opposite feelings about AI in your head at the same time is the right way to go these days. So I always like to start out this show because I want this show to be practical. And so I'll just ask each of you, what did you try in AI since the last time we talked? Damien.
I've been really loving Opus 4.6 and Cloud Code. So over here is a Linux machine where I have a microphone and I just speak, and all of a sudden magically things appear. That is, software appears. So these are the days of you needed a technical co-founder to be able to build things. Those days are gone. What matters today is subject matter expertise. And I would say that everybody on the screen and in the audience is a subject matter expert. So if you've ever thought, gosh, I wish I had software, I wish I knew a technical person to build me software that did X, you don't need to wonder anymore. Just use Cloud Code, and vibe coding is the way.
How about you, Greg?
Well, I'll give an idea that's not really law related, but my father turned 82 just a few days ago, and I got him a subscription to Claude, which he had never used before, and he had never used any LLM. And so I'm just talking him through how to get started. I'm going to spend the whole day tomorrow with him, kind of walking him through things. But the top line guidance that I gave to him is that anything that you could possibly ask, just assume that the LLM can do it. And I think that's a good framing. But, I think teaching people how to use these tools is a good way to kind of hone my own understanding of them. So I'm really looking forward to taking that journey with him.
Matthew.
Since last month, I'm doing a better job using WhisperFlow for almost every interaction in AI and just my computer in general. I'm doing a heck of a lot more inside of Comet Browser, so much so that I just said before we jumped on that I'm hitting token limits for the first time using Perplexity in the Comet Browser. So that's a shame, because anything I can't do in Gemini, Comet could just do instead, which has been very useful. And then also finally building some based on Gmail forward-facing notebooks in NotebookLM so that other people can access curated sources, and still in the process of crafting that perfect source that says, no matter what somebody asks for, don't go outside the sources I've added to this notebook, because it can do that, and that's very frustrating.
And how about you, Anna?
Yeah, I'm teaching pretrial civil litigation this semester, and I have a lot of open access sources that I've assigned, like rules of civil procedure and statutes. And so I tried to build a custom GPT for the class as a self-learning tool and self-testing tool. And I had the same issue with Matthew, like, I just want you to stop going outside of my sources. So I've been sort of trying to customize that GPT and seeing how students like it. I also had a complex writing assignment that I helped a student with, and we figured out how to do a research strategy where they could use both generative AI and extractive AI. So we're trying to figure out how to allow students to write using generative AI as one of many tools in the toolbox. And then also, I just did my second annual survey of student attitudes and familiarity on generative AI, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about what that looks like as well.
Cool. Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Two things that I've tried recently. I have now gone up to the pro version of Claude, and I am using projects. It's the last time we met, and then a friend of many of ours, Daza Greenwood, I've been talking with him, and I'm like, I'm so uncertain about which way to go. I want to learn more about the agentic, but I get overwhelmed. So he's going to give me some guidance on trying to put together some agentic use case for me or for my companies and play with it. So sometimes even at this mature age, I need a little extra guidance or direction, and because I want to just learn it. And then the second one is I am currently trying to break Sean West's new, as a geopolitical nerd myself, armchair geopoliticist. He's got one that he's started. Unruly is is geopolitical focused, and I just started using that yesterday. That's the Unruly app, and kind of business and strategy, geopolitics focused app, and I am now trying to break that one, and it's really cool. It's pretty accurate, pulls from a lot of cited sources specific to international relations.
Cool. How about you, George? You
Ye-
gotta get George off of mute.
Yeah, that would help. That's what happens when you get to be 78 years old. You forget things. I've actually been practicing law for the last month, trying to use what I've been using, which primarily is Lexis, Spellbook, Chat, and Perplexity. Using all those more and more in my litigation practice. I got to tell you, in the last 2 weeks, after Anthropic's announcement, I have just been mind-boggled about what's going on with everything and trying to catch up. And I guess what's going to force me to do is to jump on the Claude Cowork bandwagon before I'm left behind on it. And I hope we get a chance to talk about that.
And Caroline.
I released a comparison of Eve and Claude Code or Claude Projects or something Claude Projects could do. And I have to say I was stunned because Eve did not have a lot of the capabilities that Claude had. Claude was able to, I've got a dummy file of documents. Claude was able to respond to a request for document production, bait stamp and organize the materials in a discovery bundle. Eve couldn't do any of that. Claude was able to go directly into my files and just work with them directly. And Eve, I had to download the files, then unzip them, then zip them up and send them up. And I was just surprised at the differential in capability given how much, I mean, I guess honestly, both companies are getting a lot of money. So it's not like either one is working on the cheap, but I was just really surprised to see how easy it was to use a general tool to do a lot of these things that a legal tool is doing. And I published it somewhere. I posted it on LinkedIn.
Cool. And you, Kat?
Yeah, I'll jump on the Claude Cowork and Code bandwagon. So I'm currently teaching our Vail practicum. So we've got some students in there who are playing around more proactively with the tools. And we did a Claude Code workshop. We're digging into Cowork. Thankfully, Cowork just released for Windows 2. So now all my students, and one student on Windows, everybody else was on a Mac. But that solved that problem for us. And similar to what others have expressed, it's really pretty astounding to see what Claude and 4.6 are doing right now. My personal new favorite obsession is taking all the information and data and like my design for a presentation, and I don't use slides anymore. I feed all of that into Claude. I make it better with Claude's help, and then Claude creates an interactive dashboard, and I go through the dashboard during my presentation, and it does all kinds of cool things with charts and data, but not in a distracting way. It really complements and supplements, I think, the presentation, and then it's a great artifact to share with folks after the fact. And it's mind-boggling. I think George used that word. It's mind-boggling what happens. But I will say that it works best when you have subject matter knowledge, when you already have a very clear vision for what you want to accomplish and can use the tool to help you make that better. That's been my experience so far. And I just have to also comment on the market kerfuffle that we saw when Claude dropped legal skills, and you saw dips in certain stocks, and just really, really interesting. I think every day is just more proof that we have absolutely no idea how this is going to play out. And I still believe that we humans have some agency here. Nothing is inevitable. And I will close by reissuing, I say this, I try to say it pretty much daily on LinkedIn, and to anyone else who will listen, how important it is for conversations like this one to be happening so that we are approaching our choices with respect to this technology with as much intention as possible. Because inevitability does happen when you just blindly go forth and aren't intentional about the choices you make. So I will now step off my soapbox.
No, that's great. So I have a couple things, and they range from the simplest that somebody can do to something more complex to something really complex that I'm doing. So there's this notion, especially in the military, called red teaming, where you have an opposing team kind of attack in a nice way what it is that you're doing, and you see the results. And so I'm finding that almost everything that I'm doing, and toward the end of it, I just say red team this, and it will tell me like, here's some problems. Do you think about this? What did you miss? But it's in a structured way, and it can be really helpful. And then I will say, okay, given the red teaming results, improve the output that I had. And it's amazingly successful for me. The second thing is because we get all these articles out there that have all these breathless headlines, I created what I call the expert reader protocol, where I could put in the text of an article and it will analyze it for logical fallacies, statistical issues, really, really the stuff that you care about and give it a numerical rating to help me decide how much I want to pay attention to it. And then the big one I'm doing in Notebook LM is I decided to do a team of teams notion, and I'm using fictional detectives and the personas of them, and giving them a resource list, and then I'm able to manage those and to bring in the viewpoints of various famous fictional detectives and see how they analyze things and work together. But all of that and what you all were talking about raises what to me is, I think, the biggest issue these days, which is, when we talk about AI these days, what are we talking about? And is everybody really talking about the same thing? And so I've become really interested in what people actually use. And by what, I don't mean like ChatGPT, I mean like what model? What do you use it for? Those kinds of things. So let's just go in the same order. Damien, what exactly do you use? Because I think that the experience that we all have varies a lot with the models that we're using.
Yeah, I'm going to address your first question. What is AI? And I think AI is something that you don't know how it works yet, because once you know how it works, then it turns into software. So I think that AI has been a moving scale since the 1980s, when AI was the Excel spreadsheet, which then AI was, MapQuest, which turned into Google Maps. So it's a moving goalpost as to what AI is. And so that's point number one. Point number two, to what I'm using, I think that we're really going into a phase, I guess, where I use 5 different models, each of which has different personalities. So if I want to be able to write really well, I use Claude. If I want to code really well, I use Claude. If I want to reason really well, then I use Google Gemini, especially the pro version. If I want to be able to use a lot of tokens, I use ChatGPT. Or if I want to see what the hoi polloi have to do, I use ChatGPT. So I think that we're going to go from, some people just use one model and that's their go-to. But for those who want to be able to push the limits, I think we're just using each of the models for their personalities.
And then which numerical models do you rely on?
Only the best. I was listening to a Silicon Valley host that it was one of the guys who made Cloud Code. He was talking about, somebody said, well, should I just use Sonnet to save tokens? And he said, no, it's stupid, because you use Opus 4.6, because even though it's more expensive, it uses fewer tokens. And so really the idea is that I think the idea with going cheap, with a cheap model, is counterproductive, because you'll have to run more cycles. And as lawyers, our most important asset is time. We don't have time to be able to use the cheap one to get bad results. Use the more expensive models and get the good results, which will ironically be cheaper because you'll use less tokens.
Cool. That's great insight. And Kat, I know you have to leave shortly, so I'm going to bump you up because I really want to hear what you're using these days. I know we sometimes exchange thoughts on this, but what is it exactly, and what model numbers are you using?
Yeah, so apologies for skipping line. I do have to bump for another Zoom shortly, but I like Damien, I'm always like as far at the bleeding, screaming edge as I can be. So the second a new model drops, I'm in it and testing it out, figuring out, is this better for my purposes? And I can just co-sign everything Damien said. So I'm sorry, I'm not saying anything terribly original, but absolutely the different LLMs have different value to me. And so I think about what am I trying to accomplish, and then I choose which tool I'm going to go use based on what my goal is. And then I like to play them off of each other. So that's another favorite game. And I'm fortunate that I work at a place where it's my job to do this. So I don't have any personal financial consequences to to this behavior. But I think if you're just a person, you can invest a couple $100 a month and just be really intentional about trying some things and using these tools. And think within a couple of months, you get a really good sense of where the value is for your work and what is most valuable, and where you go for what goal, what purpose. But yeah, I'm right at like 4.6. The second it popped up as an option, I'm like, yes. And I'm always hitting the limits. And so I'm always like, here, take all my money. Yes, upgrade me to that next level. So I can, because nothing's worse than like you're almost done with a really intensive, token intensive project. And then you get that pop up and you're like, okay, yes, take my money. I'm not stopping now. Keep going. But I'll also point out that it's not just the models, but also what you can do within certain interfaces. And I posted earlier on LinkedIn about feature bloat because I sat through a presentation to students on a platform yesterday. And like, I'm looking at the screen going, oh my God. Like if I open that up and I'm faced with picking what I want to do, looking at that screen, I would just like hit escape and go somewhere else. So I think that my experience with whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, different values, different things that they can do. But I also appreciate that they're not all trying to do like all these things all at once in a single interface. Like it still is a very pleasant, I can go there and choose what I want to do. I will say the fact that Gemini doesn't have an equivalent to projects, a way to really keep things together as easily, as neatly as the other platforms, I think is problematic. And I sometimes choose to not go there because of that. So that's just a little feedback. Yeah.
Cool. Well, glad you could join us. I resized my screen so everybody's moved spaces. So I'm going to go with the next square that I see, which is Matthew.
All right. I'm firmly in the camp of I'll let the AI pick for me. Which tool it's going to use. This is why I'm primarily in Perplexity. It's going to pick whichever one it thinks is best for the thing that I'm doing. I think it's going to do a better job probably of picking for me. And I think that 99% of people using AI will fall into this category. And so that's what I choose to do so that I know what that experience is like. Most recently, though, in the Comet browser, it has defaulted to Claude Sonnet 4.5 for pro users and Claude Opus 4.6 for Max users. And so it's always kind of hid which model it's using for that. But now it's just like telling us. And I think the reason why is it wants us to subscribe to Max so that we get the better model. That is why it's now revealing behind the curtain, oh, this is the model you're actually using. I usually just don't know because I'm mostly in Perplexity or Notebook or Paxton, and Paxton doesn't show you either which one it's using it for which task. So, I'll just let the AI pick for me. I'm in that camp.
Okay. And Anna.
Yeah, configuring the custom GPTs lately, I've just been using ChatGPT because it's so user-friendly for me to figure out how to configure my own GPT, and then I can just go back through them and use them as I want. I continue to use Westlaw and Lexis for legal research and for drafting because that's what students have access to. So I'm just trying to keep track of how well that's going and how improved those are, what kind of improvements we're seeing. I think Westlaw's deep research is pretty amazing. What you could get from Westlaw a year ago and what you can get from Westlaw deep research now is just absolutely different. Incredibly better, incredibly more detailed and accurate. So yeah, that's what I've been up to for myself. My other question for the group is I've been using ChatGPT 5.2, but for custom GPTs where you have a set data set, I don't think you need anything like that. And so I've been trying to make it so that those smaller GPTs can just be whatever the user has, whatever the version of the user has. So I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think that's an idea, and well, actually, I think in the next question will be a good place to bring that up. So, Nick, what versions do you use? What are you using?
So predominantly now, I wish I had that education funding where I could pay for every one of the tools, but I don't. I'm using Opus 4.6 primarily now. And then I'll use in different times, I'll use the basic. I'm also using what I think it's Grok 4.1. I'll test that one out against Claude with questions. And the others, Gemini, I will predominantly use the free version, much like Matthew, because I suspect that is what most users are using. And I'm interested in the output for that specifically because I am in a company with a dominant domain name, but that we want to have come up in search. So, and not only in Google search, but I also want to see what's coming up in Gemini, the search version of Gemini for people. So.
Cool. George.
Yes. So
Your preferred models, if you make
my
a
preferred
preference.
model, I'm kind of stuck on Chat 5.2 Pro, primarily because of the security aspect of it. And also my go-to for legal research is Lexis. Sorry, Damien, is Lexis. I would love Clio to have their AI actually work, but you too, Matthew.
We're going to need to let Damien have at least a follow-up after your comment, George, before we move on next. So let's be honest here, but let's let everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. That ends part 1 of this month's Legal AI Live. Make sure to subscribe to the Legal AI Live podcast at legalailive.com to catch part 2. You could also subscribe to our new YouTube channel or on any podcast app, just search Legal AI Live, and follow the Legal AI Live page on LinkedIn. See you next episode.